Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Vjal Institute podcast. Good to see everybody again. I am Mark Troy, your host here, joined by the founder of the Vjal Institute, Adi Berlia. Welcome, Adi. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Mark, for doing this and hosting this as always. Doing fantastic. Another great week in AI, and things never stop.
Great. Well, look, first of all, as a reminder to everybody, go to Vjal, VJAL.ai. We have a wide variety of resources available, training programs, coaching programs for corporates and individuals. We work with a lot of schools and universities, a lot of free material. Reach out to us at outreach@vjal.ai. But as always, the podcast, the format this week, Adi, we start with three stories, the most important things in AI in the last week. You're going to give us a great hands-on demo, and then you're going to tell us a success story. So let's start with the news. I'm in the middle of a session on Thursday, and I'm trying to talk to people, and suddenly I was like, OMG, 4.8 just dropped. Anthropic just dropped Claude 4.8. So tell me what it means, what's different versus 4.7. Who cares?
So, Mark, when they dropped a new model, everybody was kind of excited. Oh, it's they're going to drop the Mythos, right? The big model that they've been saying is too scary to share with the world, and the idea is that hey, ChatGPT 5.5 finally sort of scared them enough to drop this in, right? And there's rumors of 5.6 coming. It doesn't seem like Mythos. It's a marginal improvement over 4.7, but there are three things in the background that's happening. One, they're doing a fundraise round as well, so they have to kind of show that they're really pushing forward with the state of the art. The second, though, is I've got about 24 hours of kind of working on this under the belt. It is better. I think a lot of it has been less to make it more, intelligent, but more, capture what they've learned with how people interact with it, how they ask questions, how they do, and then translate that into a much better model experience. So at the margin, it is a much better model than 4.7 for sure, but it isn't that huge leap that would sort of give them that, oh, now we are the absolute edge model, which is so much over, let's say, ChatGPT 5.5 or such. So glad they're doing it. I'm glad they're pushing forward, but I think all of us would have been more excited had they actually pushed out the full Mythos version, which, even their benchmarks that they had released was a lot better. The last thing I would say is that, there is a sense that this might be their version of trying to optimize the tokens at the back end, right? We've had 1 month, and you've seen our previous updates, and you can see mine at the state of the AI updates. We keep talking about all the big leaps that have happened in allowing us to run very large models with very little resources. And so 4.8 might be their version of trying to get all that research in as well. So they've been having a hard time at the back end with compute, and so that will a little bit remove some stress from their servers. So good model, probably optimized, but not the amazing big update we were all really hoping for that would change coding again.
Oh, look, I love one of the selling points of when they release it. They say, "Hey, our new model is better. It doesn't lie to you as much, and it'll tell you if it tells you something, but it's not very sure about it." So I guess that's a good sign that we're heading in the right direction.
100%.
Yeah, great. Good. Look, we'll see what happens next with Claude. Let's move on to the next question. You mentioned this in our last update, the true cost of AI compute. You had mentioned, I think, that a year and a half ago they'd sell you a subscription for $20, knowing you wouldn't really use it. Now everybody is overloading the servers. What's really going on with the cost of AI compute?
Mark, I'll tell you a story, right? We just did a training 160 CEOs for the first time. We got them to do it on Codex, which was a high risk because it's not something that CEOs are used to using, and a lot of jokes about snakes and Python. They all ran out of tokens in about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Okay.
And so on one hand, it's really cool that they're able to do so much in that short amount of time. I think that blew everybody's minds, but they all ran out of tokens. So we were joking about tokens, and then we ran out. So just a couple of points on this. One, it's a bit of a supply demand issue. On one hand, we have new chips coming out. Cerebrus just went public, Edge, Grok, all of those really driving the cost of running these. A 64 rack Cerebrus cluster, 1,500 square feet, can pretty much run all the tokens a small country generates today with the usage. So we're seeing the extrapolation of usage on front. But at the same time, we see people like Anthropic, people like other things saying, hey, we don't have enough inference. And so the tech is there. I think
Mm.
getting the tech deployed, getting into hands of consumers, getting the chips up and running, I think that's where the real lag is. I think the second thing which really concerns me, and I've seen a lot of people now come up, and there's an entire thought leadership around the token economy, and I heard that they're trying to do a token exchange and futures on tokens and all of this.
Yeah.
But the tokens are just the current LLMs plus plus, the transformer architecture. There's at least a dozen other architectures which don't use tokens or can't be translated into tokens, which are probably going to get launched this year in a big way. And so I just
Mm.
caution people when when we think about AI and compute, the fundamental calculations of what converts, a conversation that you and I might have with, Claude or a ChatGPT into electricity or compute, those aren't set in stone yet. And so I think there's going to be at least 6 months more of data and optimization to see where that one goes. But then also on the other side is to see that, hey, where is the next diffusion architecture or rain architecture or JPAC architecture, things that are we know work that are just not out in the public domain at scale yet.
Yeah, I'm a little worried because right now, probably 1% of the user population knows how to do these autonomous agents working while you sleep 24 hours. What happens when we get to 5% or 10% or whatever of the population? Then you're really going to overload these servers, yeah?
100%. I mean, you have Google launching Spark soon, which is their version of the AI agent, what Google Home should have been. Apple is also sort of now done that, and we talked about that in the last update. So there are going to be uses of tokens. But again, for me, part of it is also, but we also see the optimizations and the chips that can support that kind of use, as well as the local LLMs and the chips. So, you know,
Yeah.
I I would hesitate to say that, oh my God, we are running out of tokens, or oh my God, we are not using enough tokens. It's still very much up for grabs.
I love you're always glass half full. That's great. Let's get to our third story. The, this is an ominous headline: the coming collapse of labor categories. I've seen a few stories, but maybe you can put this in context. What's going on there?
I think, we had a couple of great demos of robots, right? Where, one big one of sorting in warehouses. We've had multiple robots now cleaning. We've had, laundry. We have all of these, and they're still kind of clunky, but they're good enough that we kind of see where this is going, right? If the LLMs are exponentially improving, even if the robots linearly improve, that means in 2 to 3 years, you'll have a lot of labor that can be done by these specialist robots. Right now, that's not new. We've had automation happening for years in manufacturing, but this is moving towards more consumer and human and AI joint spaces. I think what is now due, and this is long-term due, is us re-understanding where is the value created by human beings come in, right? And is there a way for us to capture, appreciate, and reward that value versus the traditional archetypes we've had of, hey, this is a white collar job, this is a blue collar job, this requires intelligence, this requires not intelligence, or all of that. And the interesting part is, Mark, that the AI intelligence and human intelligence don't really overlap. And I used to always joke with people back in the days, like, look, you can get a high school dropout to become a truck driver, right? And a lot of humans can become truck drivers. Uh, but for an AI to drive a truck, it's far
Yeah,
easier for it to do a PhD level research now than to have effectively driven a truck. So the types of intelligence also don't overlap. And so we need new categories to think through on, how value is created, but then also how do we slot people and AIs and systems into that heterogeneous a role. Certainly these guys at the statistics bureaus are going to have a huge headache with this.
interesting. I guess to watch this space. Okay. Great. Look, that's our top three stories for the week. Now, I think you have a demo. I think you said something about using an email from one of your most valued colleagues. So let's see what you're going to demo today.
My most valuable colleague.
One of is adequate, Adi.
Let me share it. So, this is something we did and although, so this is Codex, and you could use Cloud Code, you could use Grok Build, all of this kind of work. And what I've done at the background is I've actually connected my Gmail to this as a plugin. You can just go in the settings and do that now in a ChatGPT or Claude very soon. But you can do beautiful stuff like this. For example, hey, find and summarize any emails from the amazing Mark Troy in the last few hours. Give me a quick insight into it. them, then write, then draft and post the draft, a reply based on my previous context interactions with Mark. And in the same style, I usually interact with him on email. Now I'm
That's
going to
great.
do this on a high speed, so we're not here forever.
Yeah.
A medium, so it doesn't actually screw this up. Now, what I like about this prompt, apart from anything else, is one of the things that we've been looking at is how people communicate with each other. And part one of what we used to have access to is that, hey, come up with a prompt that's your personal prompt, right? Your personal master prompt that has everything that how you speak, how you talk, and all. But what we realized is that people talk to different people in very specialized ways. And what I like about this prompt, it kind of goes through all your emails, in this case, between me and Mark, and says, how do I normally respond to Mark? What is the full
Mm,
context of etc. there?
yeah.
And then, of course, there's a new email. So it's read my messages. And here's Mark, quick insight. Mark reported a strong coaching program momentum, 21 new cohorts. The main risk is Charlie Co, homework, etc. there. And I've created a draft, which is in my usual style, which apparently, according to AI, praises the momentum, asks for a routine coaching dashboard, requests a intervention plan, last month plan, June cohort launches against coach named capacity. All I think is a pretty much, and let me show you that where that shows up, which is my Gmail account where Mark had sent this email. And here you have it. This was the email that Mark sent talking about the course. Mark's one very nicely summarized. And this is my reply. And I think it caught the way I talked to Mark fairly accurately, and especially what I would think and do. And it sort of searched all my conversations with Mark, understood the issues, understood all of that. So it has the full context. Of course, this can be taken thing. Now, what you can do, by the way, is set an automation in Codex or Claude to do this every day. Check all your emails, summarize them for you, and already draft a reply to each one of them. So the fact that you can do this easily and just through a few connectors is absolutely brilliant. So please try it. It really, really extends everywhere. It's not just email. You can connect your calendar, you can connect your ERPs, and with systems like Claude Code and Codex, although they were meant for code, increasingly we see CEOs and individuals use them for high productivity rather
Yeah.
than to write code.
That's great. I think it really did capture Abby. Not only does it say great job, good work, all these nice things that it said, and what do we do next, and how do we make it even better? So, momentum. I love it. Good. Well, speaking of momentum, every week you regale us with a story of a customer success story. You had mentioned something earlier. Go ahead and let us know.
Mark, so I think this is one of my favorites, right? So, we used to get a lot of calls, last year about, hey, can you help us get our coders, our developers fully into AI? And one of the things we noticed is actually they are the last to get into AI rather than the first, despite their understanding, technical abilities, and knowledge. And so this year we started now helping companies really reimagine what their tech teams. And I'll be honest, part of the reason why we didn't do it last year is because the tools weren't there yet. Right. Yes, you could do a lot around thing, but it's really hard to look a senior developer in the face and say, hey, you should use this in this manner. And so this is an e-com company with a fairly large annual IT budget. They are native. They make all of their stuff. So they build their own software. They build everything else. And one of their big asks was for us is that, hey, can you come in and work with us to figure out how do we start vibe coding?
Mm,
And and for me, it was a huge success. We've been working with them now for about 6 months, really trying to unpack how they do their standard dev process and re-engineering it towards using AI first. And we started with getting them to automate their testing, started getting them to automate the start process of, creating the PRDs, the USRS, all the documentation up front. But I think
mm,
the real cool part is, last month when they started going into the middle, when now their devs took a step back and they were able to see the systems, write the code, review the code, automate it. Well, at the
mm,
same times now, rather than having, these very large teams kind of struggling to manage, having, individual people responsible for one part and working with AI to do it at scale. I think I mean, the numbers are coming in, but certainly they've done more in 1 month than they did in the entire of last year. So
Yeah,
hopefully, we are really going to see amazing successes like that all across the ecosystem.
fantastic. Great. Well, Adi, thanks once again. Listen to everybody joining us. You can be one of these success stories if you join the Vjal Institute. Don't forget, go to vjal.ai, reach out to us at outreach@vjal.ai, and tune in next week to see Adi Burlia and maybe me as well. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.